let's talk tight ends. Let's talk where we're going here, because I think that the talk on Twitter everywhere else has been this is a week where there is a cheap tight end, an obvious cheap tight end. It's Forster Moreau at 2,700 for the Raiders against Washington. I want to talk about first of all, him, but then B, what you do, especially in a tournament, if you want to get someone different. Like, where are you going to fade this Forster Moreau? Because if you're in a tournament, I think this is a guy that you fade. In a cash game, I think you just play him. He's 2,700. When Waller didn't play in week 7, Moreau was 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Didn't do a lot last week when Waller went out, but he had 5 targets, so he was involved. So this is and he's so cheap, 2,700. Like, we talk about cheap receivers, it's like 4,000, 4,100. And like 2,700 lets you do so much. But first of all, in a cash game, are you just locking in Moreau and not even thinking about it? And then let's talk about after that. Let's talk about, we'll kind of go back and forth, maybe a couple each of tight end guys we like to kind of get away from Moreau this week if you want to be different.
Yeah, for cash games, you pretty much don't even think about it. Yeah. And it's for 2 reasons. One, he's good value for 2,700. Should see plenty of targets. And then 2, most everyone's going to roster him. So you don't want to get beat by not rostering Moreau. I'd expect him to be 70, 80, 90% rostered in the higher stakes. So yeah, you just roster him in cash and move on. But then, a lot of people will just keep those same style lineups for tournaments. And like it's hard not
to it's hard not to click on that and be like, oh, look what else this gets me. But so let's talk about it. Take your first guy. If we're going away from Moreau, we want to be different in a tournament. We want to play that he's going to go 3 for 42 and no touchdowns. Like, where are you going? Give me. Let's talk about some tight ends that we're going to play instead of him.
Yeah. So if Moreau scores 5 points, which is well within his range of outcomes. I mean, he's not guaranteed to smash by any means. You're going to get big leverage fading Moreau in tournaments. So the first guy is actually cheaper than Moreau. And I have some interest in the Rams stacks this week. We've mentioned that the Rams are kind of in a smash spot here. Well, the Jaguars are going to be starting O'Shaughnessy at tight end with Dan Arnold out. On most weeks, if we didn't have Moreau, people would be using O'Shaughnessy in cash. I mean, remember, we've been using Dan Arnold in cash when he was more expensive than this. O'Shaughnessy had 5 targets last week. He was just activated off injured reserve. He had 8 targets week 1 before they had Dan Arnold. Jacksonville doesn't have Agnew anymore. They should be passing basically the whole game. So it wouldn't surprise me at all for O'Shaughnessy to outscore Moreau.
That's a nice one. I like that. He had 5. He played 59 snaps last week too. Like, he just was clearly like, Arnold got hurt. Let's just slot him in and go there. And that's a nice pivot away at the same price.
Just imagine Moreau scores 5 and Shaughnessy just has an okay game and scores 14, 15. And the difference in rostership, maybe O'Shaughnessy's, I don't know, 5% or whatever, and Moreau's 40 or 50. I mean, you just beat half the lineups in the tournament with one play that costs you 2,600. So yeah, there's a lot of leverage there. What about you? Give me someone else. Where are you looking?
So I'm gonna go one kind of up the board and one down the board. But my first one is, I think that one way you get different here is you spend at tight end, because everybody's gonna be saving. If you want to be different this week, if you spend at tight end, you're gonna be different just because based on the way your lineup's gonna have to work. You're gonna have to get cheaper somewhere else. But I like George Kittle in the spot this week. 5,900. We mentioned no Deebo Samuel. I'm one that usually doesn't roster Kittle just because I'm a 49ers fan. He's my favorite player of the 49ers. I'm always, always a little scary there. But he only had 2 targets last week. He had 1 catch for 13 yards. They ran the ball a ton. I think the squeaky wheel comes in here a little bit. I think they'll realize that, we're better when George Kittle gets the ball a lot. He had 11 targets last time they played Seattle. Like, that was week 4. He was only 4 for 40, but super involved. No Deebo should bump up the targets. I think this is a week that Kittle scores. I think this week's Kittle's really active. Just with the way they build their third downs is like, boom, Deebo 9 yards, Deebo 12 yards. We're going to get him involved. Deebo running around the edge. I think that guy becomes Kittle. I think Ayuk plays his same role, and I think Kittle kind of moves into that like third down target role. I think that nobody's going to play him this week if he's 900. When you have Moreau, 3,200 less, like there's nobody's going to Kittle. If they do, maybe they go to Pitts or Mark Andrews instead. I think Kittle is a 3-4% guy this week, and you give me a stud like this in a game that I think Seattle's going to open it up a little bit. I think Seattle's heard a lot of noise this week about how bad their offense is. I know they signed Adrian Peterson and Pete Carroll said we're in win now mode. Like, I think that's crazy, obviously. But I don't think the Niners have the DBs to stop Seattle's receivers. I think it's going to go a little bit more back and forth than people think. So I do like George Kittle this week at 5,900.